What if healing doesn't begin with control or suppression or trying harder? What if it begins with something much simpler? Feeling safe inside your own body again. For many people, that idea feels strange, almost unsettling, because safety is rarely part of the medical conversation. It can sound vague, secondary, even irrelevant when symptoms are loud, persistent, and real. And yet, underneath nearly every autoimmune journey, there is one quiet, unspoken question. Can I trust my body? Most of us were never taught to ask that. We were taught to monitor, manage, intervene, stay alert, to treat symptoms as signs that something is about to go wrong. Over time, something shifts. The body is no longer felt as home. It becomes something to supervise. Sensations become something to interpret quickly. Stillness becomes suspicious. Ease feels temporary. And what's important to see is this: that shift doesn't begin with symptoms. It begins the moment the body is framed as an adversary. When illness is described as self-attack, even metaphorically, it changes the relationship between you and your body. Words shape perception. Perception shapes response, and response shapes physiology. This doesn't happen because you consciously believe the words. It happens because your nervous system listens for danger long before your mind evaluates meaning. So if something in you has been bracing, tightening, watching, preparing, this isn't a failure of resilience. It's intelligence responding to a story that positions your own body as dangerous. You've likely been told that your immune system is attacking you. Those words are usually delivered clinically, sometimes gently, often quickly, followed by a plan to suppress or control the response. The implication is clear. Even when it isn't said, something inside you has gone wrong. Your body cannot be trusted. You must stay vigilant. If you felt fear when you heard that totally makes sense. Because the moment the body is framed as the enemy, the system has no choice but to stay armed. Language matters more than we realize, especially to the nervous system. When the body is described as attacking itself, a subtle but powerful shift occurs. What was once home becomes territory, something to watch, something to manage, something that might turn against you at any moment. Over time, this doesn't just shape treatment, it shapes identity. You may notice yourself constantly scanning, second-guessing sensations, relying more on external authority than your own inner knowing, and living with a quiet sense of alertness even on good days. This isn't weakness, it's intelligence responding to perceived danger. I know this pattern intimately. There was a time when being in my body felt unbearable, not because I didn't understand what was happening, but because I didn't want to feel it. My instinct was to escape sensation as quickly as possible. One day, instead of pushing through or numbing out, I paused. I sat down and practiced mindfulness. not to make the pain go away, but just to stay. Nothing changed physically, but something else did. The fear softened, the urgency quieted, and I realized I had been treating my body like something to survive rather than something to listen to. I didn't heal that day, but I stopped fighting, and that changed everything, because it was the first time my body was no longer the enemy in the room. So, what if the story is incomplete? What if the immune system isn't attacking you? What if it's responding exactly as it was trained to, based on signals of threat learned long ago? In other words, what if this isn't malfunction, but misinformation? The immune system does not act randomly. It is exquisitely responsive to perception, especially perception related to safety. It reacts not only to pathogens, but also to internal alarms, stress signals, and cues of danger that live far beyond conscious awareness. This doesn't mean symptoms are in your head. It means the body is responding to what it believes is necessary to protect you. Protection, when it goes on too long, can look like attack. Think of a smoke alarm that goes off every time you cook. The alarm isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do based on overly sensitive thresholds. Autoimmune responses can operate in a very similar way. At some point, the system learned that heightened vigilance was required, that standing down wasn't safe, that rest might be risky. This learning often happens slowly, through stress, through emotional suppression, through trauma that has no space to resolve, through roles that required endurance over expression, through identities built around being strong. The body adapts, not because it's defective, but because it's intelligence. And when survival becomes the baseline, everything reorganizes around it. From the outside, it looks like malfunction, but from the inside, it looks like a system that never received the message, the danger has passed. And here's the part that matters. If the body believes it is protecting you, then fighting or controlling it can actually reinforce the pattern. Suppression can reduce symptoms, and sometimes it's necessary. But suppression alone doesn't teach safety. And without safety, the system stays alert. This is why so many people cycle through strategies, always adjusting, always monitoring, without ever feeling truly at ease in their bodies again. Not because they haven't tried hard enough, because the story guiding the response never changed. So what if we began somewhere else? What if instead of asking, how do I stop my body from doing this, we ask, what did my body learn that made this necessary? That question alone changes the tone of the relationship between you and your body. It moves you out of war and into inquiry, out of blame and into understanding, out of fear and towards possibility. Understanding this can bring relief, but insight alone doesn't recalibrate a system that has learned in survival for years. The body doesn't change because it understands something. It changes when it experiences something different, and that experience begins with safety. Safety is not a thought, it is a physiological state. If your immune system has been protecting you, Your body is not broken, but changing how protection shows up requires more than willpower or positive thinking. It begins with reestablishing trust from the inside out, and that is where the real work begins.